Hey everybody, welcome to the Herd Fit Podcast with Dr. Sam Rhee and myself, Coach David Syvertsen. This podcast is aimed at helping anyone and everyone looking to enhance their healthy lifestyle through fitness, nutrition, and most importantly, mindset. All right, welcome back to the Herd Fit Podcast. I am Coach David Syvertsen. I'm here with my co-host, Dr. and Coach Sam Rhee. Recording here on a Sunday before a big day. We can announce this now. We kind of put this out on social media already. But tomorrow, actually, in about 19 hours, we're going to have Joe Linton sitting in between us to talk about the Legends 2023 competition, but probably more importantly, what most of you guys want to hear about is the fact that Legends is now the new host to the CrossFit Games Masters divisions and teens and adapted. Oh, no, just the Masters. And we're really excited to kind of get some information out of him, at least what he's allowed to say, but ask him some questions, some easy ones, we give him some layups. We're also going to ask him some tough questions because what he's taking on is an enormous responsibility. He has a lot of pressure, and he's a great guy. I'm really glad that him and Bob both got it. I don't think anyone else deserved it as much as they did to get this first crack at it. And so if you guys really want to get into that, next week's episode will be airing. We'll have Joe Linton. We're going to be interviewing him tomorrow, but it'll air about 5-6 days later. So Sam, can't wait for that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I listened to him earlier on Talking Elite Fitness, and I feel like we could ask a little more probing questions than they did.
Yeah. We're going to strap him down to the chair. If we're going to have the gym do his workout on Monday, we can ask him some tough questions, and then he could get his revenge on us as we do the workout. You're going to do the workout tomorrow, 6 a.m.?
I'm going to stay and do the 9:30.
Oh, nice. Awesome. Sweet. Yeah, 9:30 will be fun tomorrow. All right, cool. So today's topic is kind of in this sport idea, but it's really not, because we see this in the local gyms all the time. And it really is a polarizing topic. Should you RX Plus workouts? And what should everyone else's approach be to your RX Plus workout? And this is a fascinating topic. We've actually debated this as a staff multiple times. And I guess when we have like a tie, right? You have 5 people think this, 5 people that. It does come down to, I usually have to make the decision on how we're going to handle something like that. And it's really been one of the few situations in our gym over the years where I just don't have an answer of what we should do. And we're going to get into like any debatable topic, whether it's something not so serious like RX Plus or something serious out there in the real world outside of our CrossFit bubble. I think it's really important to talk about every single perspective and give your potential why and to all those different perspectives to help at least we can all understand why someone does it, why we shouldn't do it. So no matter what side of the fence you're on is, should RX Plus even be a thing? Should that even be allowed? Listen to the perspectives of different sides. And we're going to give 3 sides here: the athlete perspective, the coach perspective, how you handle this as a coach, and then the programmer. There's multiple answers to all those perspectives. So Sam, you've been at Bison for, we're almost 10 years in now. We got our 10-year anniversary coming up. Can't wait. And you've been here for most of those years, all but just a couple months. You've seen people RX Plus before. Have you RX Plus before?
I have to admit I have on occasion, but not recently.
Yeah. We don't want to start off this thing that it's a bad thing. All right. But it's I've done it before, and I think I've done it responsibly, and I've also think I've done it irresponsibly.
So when you say RX Plus, just to clarify, you mean like, let's suppose the workout's Grace 30 clean and jerks for time at 135.95.
Yep.
Someone's like, I'm gonna do it at 155 or 115 or something like that.
Yeah, you're making the workout harder than the prescribed movements, weights, loads, volume. It is almost always loads. We'll get into that in a little bit. But yeah, you're basically taking a workout that's written for a class. And again, this happens a lot in group fitness classes, right? When we program for the gym, we're programming for, I don't want to call it template, but it kind of is, because you have 180 people come to the gym in a day and they're all doing the same workout. And we scale down a lot, right? We write RX and scale on the board. And occasionally you'll have athletes that need to RX plus it or feel they need to for whatever reason. We'll get into that. But basically what an RX plus in terms of what we're talking about is I'm going to make this workout more difficult. That's it. You're going to make it more difficult. That's what RX Plus is. And then you write your score on the board. You get the RX with a little plus sign next to you so everyone in the world can see it, right? Why do people do this? Let's start off on the athlete perspective. Why do you think, if you come to the gym at let's say you come at night one night, okay, and you see there's 150 scores on the board, let's make it something a little bit more complicated than grace, because there's such a thing as heavy grace and obese grace.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about like a 5-round workout. You know what? The one that we've been doing lately, we still have another version of this with wall balls, thrusters, bar facing burpees, and toes bar. And the RX thruster is 85-60, a weird weight. You know, you don't see those weights with thrusters often. 20-pound wall ball, toes bar, bar facing burpees. That's a pretty tough workout. It's a good workout. It's a CrossFit workout. But you see temptation in some, or there are athletes that feel temptation, they might not do it, to make this a little bit tougher, make it a little bit heavier. Why do you think that is?
I would say that one of the perspectives would be, you know what? 55 reps of 85-pound thrusters or 60-pound thrusters is not too taxing. And I'm not going to get the best workout if that's what I'm programming myself for, or that's what I'm going to do. So you know what? Let me just bump it up to 95 or 105, and I feel like I'll get the stimulus that I think the programmer is trying to get for me.
Yep. So sometimes when we train our coaches to give a good whiteboard talk, right, and they do a really good job of it, I'll go up in front of the class and say, hey guys, this weight, just so you know, it should be a weight you can do 11 reps in a row of. Like you should be able to do 11th. That immediately, especially an inexperienced CrossFitter, could be like, oh, so that's the stimulus that Dave wants. He just said, I should be able to do all 11 thrusters unbroken. Some people see that and like, yep, I'm going to have to go lighter because I can't do that weight 11 times. But then the other athlete, I'd be like, dude, I could do 30 pounds heavier unbroken every single time through. 5 rounds of 11 reps. Let's go. I got that. That might be the number one reason why I think people do RX Plus. I'm trying to be glass half full here, and we will go glass half empty in a little bit. It's that they hear a coach talk about stimulus, and we preach stimulus here a lot. And we also know that there's a huge gap between the strongest and the weakest in a gym like this, just based on volume of people that come here and experience levels too and backgrounds, right? That if they hear stimulus needs to be X, Y, Z, and they could do that with heavier weights, why wouldn't they do it? Same thing, a 30-pound wall ball for guys, 20-pound wall ball for ladies. You know, like, hey, the stimulus is I got to go unbroken. I can do unbroken. Why wouldn't I do it? Do you look down on that?
No, absolutely not. I think people should try to challenge themselves if that's what they're really thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, let's go glass half empty. What would be a reason that you might not hear anyone actually admit? But what's a reason why someone might RX Plus a workout because of this voice inside their head? I have a couple of reasons, but I want to hear yours first.
Okay. Well, I'm going against Jimmy today, and I know Jimmy is going to get a really good time on this, and my time is going to suck next to his time. So if I go heavier on the thrusters, then I could get a lower score, but it'll say RX Plus, and they'll be like, oh, well, I don't have to compare myself to Jimmy because I actually did a harder workout than he did, and I'm good. My ego is intact.
Yeah, I don't take the L.
Right.
You know, I'm not going to walk home with a scarlet letter on my tattooed onto my forehead saying I lost to Jimmy because he did RX, I did RX Plus. I was 3 minutes slower, but hey, I went RX Plus, so that's why. So I do see this in competitive athletes a lot. And when I say competitive, I don't mean people that sign up for comps or go to the games or anything, like just people that come to the gym and they're very competitive every day. And I think that's a great trait that can help you out in the real world outside of this bubble that we're in. But you, at some point, especially after a little bit of time of competing day to day, some people come here every single day. It's like that's their thing. They're trying to compete, which is fine. You are trying to find new angles at some point to tell yourself that you're doing a good job, that you won, you know? And that could be a reason. Almost always when we see someone RX Plus, and when I say almost always, 99.9% of RX Plus athletes, it's the weight. It's a barbell. You never, ever see a gymnast be like, you know what? I'm going to do 15 bar muscle ups instead of 10. You never see a runner be like, I'm going to run 800 meters instead while everyone else is running 400 because I'm such a good runner. It's always the lifters. And this does, like, it does. I think you need to be careful, lifters, of always wanting to push the weight on workouts because you can convince yourself that you're working harder. I don't agree, but maybe you have a specific goal of getting stronger, which is fine. We'll get into that as well. But I think most of the time when a lifter adds weight to a workout, so that in an RX plus fashion, it's for the reason that it gives them an excuse to go slower.
I would say I have done that. I have literally said, I'm not going to be as good as some of these movements, so I'm just going to go heavier on the weight and slow things down for me. What if and I was just thinking about this when we talked earlier, what if I'm a good lifter, and I say hey, what, Dave, what are you talking about? I can still put up a decent number.
Yeah.
Like, not a bad number on this workout. So why can't I just like show off I really enjoy lifting heavy. Why don't you let me just do 135 thrusters, dude?
Well, the first thing, if you actually talked in that tone to me, I'd be like, "Stan, that's weird. Why are you talking like that?"
I don't even know. Like, I don't know
That's
anyone who talks
voice.
like that. I was not. I was trying to do like a bro.
Well,
type dude.
Well, you were trying to create a pretend person there,
Yeah,
so
right,
that was a good job. Here's the thing: we might sound like we're anti RX plus. I'm not. If someone came to me and said like, "Hey, I'm trying to get stronger," and these weights, like, they're not really going to help me get to my goal of lifting certain weights. Like if we had an ascending snatch workout of 95, 135, 185, and someone can like really toss that weight around, like it's almost like too easy, and they want to go 135, 185, 205, something like that, I wouldn't look against it, but I would not hesitate that if it became a trend with an athlete, I would simply tell them that if you're constantly going slower with heavier weights, it might help you get stronger. But now you are no longer training the intensity/speed component to CrossFit, right? Adding intensity to workouts can be via weight, right? But in most cases, intensity in workouts, better output in a workout is about doing more volume or going faster, all right? Look at the open every single year. We talk about this every time we talk about the open. Most of the movements in the open are without any exterior load. And when there are exterior loads in the CrossFit Open, they're usually manageable. Meaning like, hey, the strong guys, cycle. If you're not strong, probably still get away with doing a few reps at a time or quick singles, right? And if you're constantly training these slow singles and never really practicing 15 reps in a row, 20 reps in a row, 20 thrusters in under 40 seconds, if you never train something like that, it's not going to just happen because you got stronger. So the athlete, if you have this goal of going RX plus, and again, we're talking about weight because that's usually what people RX plus in workouts, there better be a specific reason, and that better not be a trend that you do often. Now, I'm going to go another glass half empty approach. All right. And this kind of ties into the Jimmy example. Hey, Jimmy's going to beat me, so I'm just going to go heavier. This was, I don't want to call it a problem, but it was a trend at Old Bison. So you're looking about 4, 5, 6 years ago, where we felt as a staff, there were people going RX plus in workouts so that others could see they were going RX plus.
On the whiteboard.
It made them feel like they had it's almost like you underlined a name.
Right. Elite.
Because like RX, scaled, RX, scaled, RX plus. And there's only like 3 of you. So like, and these were athletes that were pretty good. Nothing special, but they were pretty good.
Right.
They always wanted that RX plus, and they would come up to the board and be like, oh no, what was your time? 7:51. RX plus. It's like they had 2 different volumes when they gave the answer. 7:51. RX plus. Really loud. I was like, okay, we will write that RX plus on the board. And we did. And here's a response that we actually did this for a while, not doing it right now. And again, I will openly admit, I don't know if this is the right decision yet, that when you RX plus, you are scaling the workout.
Yes, we argued about that as staff, and I was about to bring that up. That if you RX plussed it, you got a scaled next to your name.
Yep. Not RX plus, SC. And I'll tell you what, I really do think it's a good idea because of what we try to preach here. We've preached this on this podcast, and we preach it at our gym all the time. Like it makes me nauseous how many times we have to explain this. Scale does not mean bad. It means you change the workout. RX does not mean good. It just means you did the workout prescribed. So athletes, I'm going to ask you this question right now, that if we never wrote RX plus to your name for the rest of your life, and every time you did RX plus and we wrote scale next to your name, would it change your approach at all? And honestly, you're probably not going to be honest to everyone about it. You just have to ask yourself, would you be even somewhat bothered if you RX plus the workout, right? And we wrote scaled next to your name, would you be bothered by it? Because if you are, that probably does mean you are now trending down a dangerous path of you want RX plus so that other people are impressed by you. And that is wrong. Straight up.
Let me ask you this. Playing devil's advocate a little bit, not really, but on a personal level, I've seen your scores up on the whiteboard, and I've seen it both ways.
Yep.
And I have a feeling it's just whatever the coach who's coaching that class decides to write down.
Yep.
So on some days you've done the workout and you've done it RX plus.
Yes.
Like let's suppose you did strict handstand push-ups, same number,
right,
but not kipping or a heavier weight for something.
Mm-hmm.
And I have seen coaches write RX and then 185 instead of 135 or something, or strict versus, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've also seen you do RX plus, but it was just RX that was written down.
Right.
And
I rarely will go to a coach and say RX plus. If they notice it, they can write it down. I personally do not care 1% if a coach writes RX plus, scaled, or RX next to me.
Okay, but let me ask you this. Now, if I am looking at the whiteboard and I'm looking at how my fellow athletes are doing, I work off of them a lot. And and I see it, and if it's not accurate, basically, if it's not accurate data, then how do I know where I'm sitting? Maybe I think I'm doing really well, and actually I'm not doing well, and I need to push myself a little bit more. So these are the kind of things when I'm like, Dave only got this. Oh, well, you know what? He did it like.
Can we call me Jimmy, please?
Like he was doing 55 pounds more, and he did all the movement strict instead of kipping. And then you're like, oh, well, shoot, maybe I need to rethink what I'm doing.
So that's why I do push back on writing scale next to someone's name. But I'm this like probably unrealistic utopian like CrossFitter where like I really do feel like that the whiteboard is a guide that we can help each other with. It's not just a leaderboard. It's not just a scoreboard, right? Like I love the idea, and I watch people do this all the time. Like I'm very observant in the gym. There's very, very, very few things in this gym that I don't notice. Right. So if you ever think you're getting away with something, you're probably not. Okay. But one of the things I see all the time, people will spend, watching you guys. People will spend 5 minutes looking on the whiteboard when they come in. And some, there's probably some bad thoughts but like I really genuinely think it helps. That's why like I love the morning people. I love the 5 and 6 a.m. because they set the tone for the rest of the gym. But I'm telling you, do you guys realize how many people come in the day and they're looking at your scores? You might get offended a little bit because they're trying to beat you. And like, hey, said this before too. If someone beat your score and they did it after you and they had your score in their head already, that's not a win for them. It's just not. Like it. So don't let that get discouraged. If anything, I want the morning people to take some pride in that. That you guys, like, you give us all these scores, you give us all this data, right? That for the rest of the day, people come in, they're staring at that shit. I'm telling you, dude, I've been doing this 10 years. People stare at the stuff you do. And you might not be competitive. It's not competitive. It's like, hey, so-and-so did this. Like, I'm going to try to do that. It's inspiring. It's motivating. If you don't believe me, let's not write down workouts, scores on the board for a month. It wouldn't be the same. I know some people would like that, but we're never going to do it. It wouldn't be the same. And I want that. So in that discussion, if someone does RX plus and then someone else with a similar approach, ability level, they come in and they see that RX plus 185 next to Sam's name, Jimmy's name, Dave's name, whatever. Now they want to do that because A, they can do it within the stimulus, not get capped out. They can do it safely. It gives them a goal to shoot after. And why is that a bad thing? Now, if we just write scale next to the name, it can be a little bit tougher for someone to really know. Devil's advocate to that point would be we don't write scaled and what the weights they do are scaled green band, red band like we used to. We just don't. And honestly, we're not against it. It's just
it's time consuming.
It's too time consuming with classes of 30 people.
Oh
So
my God.
It's just too much. So that's where I do think, and again, like Sam and I probably sound like we're talking out of both sides of our mouth right now, but we kind of want to, because I want you guys, because I think a lot of people have a strong stance on this topic. And it's kind of just like, hey, man, this is what I think. But you should look at it from another perspective. And in another perspective, I'm going to start going into the coaching side of this, where I will tell certain athletes to RX plus certain workouts. One that we just did. On Thursday, Sam coached a class that had dumbbell step overs, wall walks, and then I had lunges and strict press, sit down in the box, which was funny to watch people do, by the way.
That's a tough one, especially on your weak side.
Yeah, it was so funny.
Yeah.
And so here we go. We had the workout prescribed. It was dumbbell step overs with one dumbbell. We've done both. We've done two dumbbells before. That's actually probably more common, like especially in sport. And didn't want the gym to do that. Okay, we had a tough squat day coming up the next day. I took out the weight on the lunges as well. Didn't want to crush them before the squat cleans. But logistically too, it's easier for everyone just to get one dumbbell and do the thing. I told Amy, and I think it might have been Mike McKinney too, to do two dumbbells. Is it because I think they're better athletes than everyone else and they need to do harder workouts? No, I don't think that. All right. It's because they have a competition coming up that if that movement is in there, they ain't using one dumbbell. It's going to be two. And that workout is night and day different, one dumbbell versus two. So I want them to start practicing those skills. So if someone has a competition coming up or something they're really training for, let's say we have that thruster workout again that we do have coming up with a descending rep scheme, and they have a comp coming up in a month with 115 thrusters, guys, and 75-pound thruster girls. Hey, I want to do the thrusters at that weight because I kind of want to feel that weight. More power to you, RX plus that shit. Do you have any opinions as a coach for someone that came up to you and was like, hey, this workout, I got to get two dumbbells. I have something to prepare for.
That's happened, actually. That happened this summer when people were training for Asbury.
Yeah.
They would slightly modify it, but that's modifying the workout.
Okay.
That's not really RX plussing it.
Okay.
That's just changing it to help them with their competition.
Mm-hmm.
I will say on a personal, you did take that class at 5 a.m. You used one dumbbell.
I did use one dumbbell.
The technique you used to hold that dumbbell blows my mind. It just looks so nuts. Like everyone else is holding it up on your shoulder. Why are you holding it down here?
Yeah, right over my crotch, really.
Right. What is that all about?
I don't know what that was all about. I honestly didn't have a plan for how to hold my dumbbell, and I started picking it up, and it started colliding with my leg. So I'm like, I want to hold this in front of me a little bit, but I can't. I was too weak to do it with one, so I held it with both. So yeah, I had that'll be on my OnlyFans account that comes up if anyone wants to.
Anyway, but I will say this: if people are training for something, like they have a specific reason, I really encourage that.
Same here. Crossovers.
Yes. Sometimes they were like, you know what, I'm going to do chest to bars instead of pull-ups because I have to practice my chest to bars.
Ring muscle-ups instead of bar muscle-ups.
Exactly. So those are the kind of variations that I think you can adapt a workout or a class, as long as it's not too disruptive.
Yeah, right, absolutely.
And I think that worked out pretty well. But I think what I was going to say is, I think you're going to get into is, as a programmer, how do you start handling it? Like, I was going to ask you, how many people now actually RX plus at our gym on a regular basis?
On a regular basis, not many. I don't even know if anyone does on a regular basis. I get asked a lot, hey, should I go do this heavier? And I've had Alex ask me that a few times. And because Alex is very strong, he's got very ambitious goals. And yeah, there's going to be certain times where he is going to need to do some heavier loads. But I think a lot of that can be solved with just lifting, right? But yeah, there are values to going heavier in certain workouts for a person like that. But sometimes he will ask me, hey, should I go 70-pound dumbbell today on a dumbbell snatch? Because like a 50-pounder is like a twig, right? Yesterday I used a 70-pound dumbbell for yesterday's bison wad.
Nick Squire for a long time was using 30-pound wall balls instead of a 20 because he wanted to get really good at the 20, and that was great. But you know why he did it? It was not for ego or for whiteboard. It was he wanted to get better at the 20s, and he's already incredibly good at wall balls.
Yes,
So that was something that I've seen athletes do, and I do encourage that.
So if you have an athlete, so if you're a programmer or coach and you have 11 people wanting to go heavier on the dumbbells or heavier on the wall balls, the conversation needs to be had. And I've had this conversation with someone like Alex and someone like back in the day, like I remember Brendan Duffy used to want to do this, right? It's like, it's fine if you do it occasionally for a very specific reason, and that specific reason has nothing to do with your ego. You're the only one that's going to be able to honestly answer that. But I will fire back usually and say, hey, No, don't go heavier on this. Go faster and go with bigger sets. Go unbroken and go faster. Because that's, again, it's something that needs to be trained. The intensity. So the programmer, if you have a gym full of people, or not even gym, if you have a dozen people RX plusing most of your workouts,
right?
Let's even say one or two workouts per week. Not even most. I think it's time to make your programming tougher.
Really?
Yep. Problem. What if it's one person? And what if that one person is a games caliber athlete, semifinal caliber athlete? That's where, again, it's like the discussion, should you write RX plus or scale on the whiteboard? I don't have the answer. We've never been through it. Never had a games athlete actively training for the games during our actual programming that was on our program, right? We've had a bunch of quarterfinalists. They don't need to change anything. Here's one thing. Here's a rule I'll give you. You need to earn that right first. All right? Let's say Joe Piero started coming to Bison.
Yeah. Semifinal athlete.
Semifinal athlete.
Individual. Young guy. Yeah.
Young guy, really strong. If he came to Bison, I would say he has now earned the right to RX plus most workouts. Not going to RX, I wouldn't change, like if he was just a member, and like, again, he has his own program, his own coach, but if he's like, hey, Dave, I want to come to Bison, I want to be a part of the community, but I still want to try to compete and get to the games, get to the semifinals, he probably would have to RX plus most workouts, but he's earned that. All right. If you have not made semifinals, I've not made quarterfinals. And again, I don't like bringing that up because it can get sensitive with some people, but it's a nice marker.
Yeah, it's an easy, quick judge.
Yeah, like what else do I use
of your fitness?
Right? It's like, can't use Bison scores because they're not real. They don't have a judge. Right. Like I see people not do reps all the time or forget movements or something like that happen. I do it too. I've miscounted, misread movements before. So you can't really use a Bison score as a gauge. When you have judges and everything, the open, the quarterfinals. So if you have not made quarterfinals, I would even say if you have not made semifinals yet, you don't really deserve the right to RX plus workouts. Unless, what we've talked about, there's a very specific reason why. You have something coming up. You need to train something. You're really working on this movement instead of that movement. You're working on this load instead of that load. And if you're not hitting the stimulus of the workout, those reasons are out.
Sure.
So if Nick Squire wants to come and use a 30-pound wall ball and he got capped out on a wall ball workout,
yeah, then that doesn't really.
Hey, you're not good enough to RX plus that workout. And I think that's what some people need to hear too. Without us being condescending, is that a lot of people that RX plus workouts, they're not good enough to RX plus the workout because they haven't proven that they can do. There's a ladder to competing at a high level. You can't skip steps 3 through 6 and go right to 7 because you can do a few things well.
Right. Like
you got to hit step 3, hit step 4, hit step 5, hit step 6. Okay, now we can start talking about RX plus. And it usually takes longer than you think. Everyone I know that has had a competitive CrossFit goal, they either wash out at some point or they start to realize, like, dude, it takes too long. Like the week-to-week grind, the day-to-day grind, you have responsibilities, you just can't get the training in, and that's okay. Or, hey, I want to make the games. Cool. It's going to take about 7 years before you're in the discussion.
I would say, like with Nick Squire, he can beat most people with a 30-pound than
that's true.
Like me with a 20-pound.
Yeah.
So I don't have a problem with that. Let me ask you this. In general, how many people at the gym would you say RX on average a given workout? How many scale it on any given day?
So I think it's usually about 40 to 50% RX.
Okay.
And about 50 to 60% scaled on an average day.
And this is different from most subscribed programming. Like, for example, if you subscribe to Mayhem's programming, maybe 10% might RX it.
On like a day-to-day basis.
On a day-to-day basis.
Yep, I agree.
So out of that 40%, how many, if you had upped the numbers, RX plus it?
Still thinking about doing it. I don't know if everyone's known, I have inched a couple things up.
Yeah, so why do you still make it accessible, the RX as accessible, when most other programmers out there are making it really hard to RX stuff, like 10%?
I'll tell you why. A lot of those subscription programmers, they're not programming for a specific group of people. Mm-hmm. They're programming for anyone and everyone around the world that wants it. So you really don't know who's going to sign up for it. Where I know who's coming to the Bison WODs.
I see.
If we all of a sudden had 10 games athletes on the Bison program, then honestly, you probably would have to inch it up. We have inched up our programming we've talked about it all the time, right?
Yeah, we
did
have.
an episode on this. Programming is harder than it was, but it has to be done along with the people that are doing it. Now, if we were like a big famous workout program and we had, 10,000 people around the world doing it, you probably do need to make everything tougher because you work down from there. What's my philosophy on programming is you program for the best athletes that are doing your program. All right. Best athletes, meaning the best athletes for that workout. And then you program down from there. If you have 10,000 people doing your programming and some of them are like, across the country and they're just crushing every single person from this gym doing the workouts got to get tougher for them.
Don't you think you have in this gym at least 10 or maybe 12 athletes a day that could or maybe 5 could RX plus a workout any given day?
Yeah, I do. Every day could I hand pick
and still crush it
/ get the stimulus / maybe even in most cases even get still one of the top 10 scores in the gym? Yeah, I do.
So why not?
Good question.
I'm just saying, like, there might be a role at some gyms where, depending on how you work it, maybe they need a little bit of a RX plus designation.
So this is where I love the levels idea, and like level 1, level 2. Like we're actually going to do something along those lines with Joe Linton's workout tomorrow that Bison's doing. Because tomorrow's workout is a little out of reach for a lot of people.
Yeah, I saw it.
It's going to be fun, but so we're going to I think instead of saying RX plus and scale, blah, 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 right? We're just going to come up with like level 1, level 2, level 3, and then you can modify from there. We're not going to make it. I would love to do something like that every day because that for every workout, because that would wipe out what you're asking. It's gone. Like level 1 is just always going to be like, yep, most of you guys can't do that. And level 2 is like, level 2, just so you know, like, that would be like a normal Bison RX. Level 1 is kind of like the RX plus. Level 3 is kind of like, hey, like just a notch below, but what I fear doing it, that level 1 would now be the threshold that everyone feels like they need to do.
Right.
Would it separate the gym a little bit? Yeah. I don't think so. I think we're stronger than that. I think our coaches are really good at making that not happen. They're just good pulse in the gym, good culture builders, right? But that kind of like we are changing a few things up in the new year, and that's still like that was going to be around the time where I was going to start to push the workout programming a little bit. And one of the options would be, now that we're really talking about it right now, it's just helping my head spin a little bit, is that might be something that we can experiment with maybe at least until the open and get feedback from members and coaches, not just the coaches. Level 1, level 2, level 3 every single day. And then when you write someone's score, you write, Sam, 854, 1.
1 masters? No.
one masters plus. Your 55 age is coming up, right? But no, just 1, 2, 3.
Right.
And hey, guy, and like you explain this in a very responsible way, that level 2 is what Bison RX would be. Like if I didn't do levels, level 2 is what our weights would be. But like that thruster workout that we just talked about, that weight would be, nothing crazy. Let's say 115.75, level 1. Level 2, 85.60. Level 3, 75.55. And then, if you're scaling one of those versions, right? Hey, I did the thrusters, but I couldn't do the toes to bar, right? Then we just try scaled. So you're either doing 1, 2, or 3, or you're scaling.
I love this because we are talking about both sides of our mouths about RX plus.
Yeah.
Like we're poo-pooing it in a lot of ways, but we're also like considering instituting it to a certain degree.
And the RX plus misnomer would be gone. Like we wouldn't be writing RX plus anymore. It's just like, hey, I did this at level 1. That means like, yeah, I did this at what a harder than Bison RX workout would be.
That's like when they grade you and it's like outstanding, excellent, very good. And you're like, dude, that's an A, B, and C. We know what it is. You're just changing the terminology here a little bit.
And, the last thing I wanted to touch on is I want to make sure the reason why we're talking like this, 2 different perspectives, like we sound like we're leaning this way and then we lean that way, right? I don't like the tone that some people have with it, and it's no one here. Like I like the best conversations I've had with, I'll say it right now, the best conversations other than this one, Sam, has been with Adam Ramsden. We mention him as much as anyone on this podcast, just because his opinions are so like pure and CrossFit, and like he doesn't care if anyone's a really good athlete or not a good athlete. He doesn't care. It's just like what is your real reason behind it? And if we start writing RX Plus, does it create, like he's good at forecasting problems. Could that create a problem a year from now? Could it create injuries for people that are just pursuing things they shouldn't be pursuing? So his tone is great with it, but there are some famous CrossFit coaches out there that have a pretty big following that it sounds bitter. Like they're almost like not jealous, just bitter. Like this old CrossFit coach that's been through the ringer for 12 years and so much has changed around us. And, it used to be like Asics and basketball shorts. Now it's like Noble and TYR shorts, right? So much has changed. And RX Plus, one thing that has changed about CrossFit so much, even since I've been doing it, I'm like 11 or 12 years in now, like the gap, the margin between athletes is just enormous now. It was not that way in 2011.
Very true. The top wasn't as top as it was.
Right.
The bottom still is the bottom. When you start, I mean, not bottom, but like the level when you first start is always the same.
Yeah.
But the top has just, it's so high at this point.
And you have people just like dedicating so much time and effort, energy into it that you have to, and part of the CrossFit principles is that we have to keep pushing against them, like pushing the line, pushing thresholds, and trying to achieve things that we can't do or couldn't do anymore. And I know not everyone's a go-getter, and some of the like screw this RX Plus stuff. That's you. That's what you think. There's people other than you out there that have some genuine, real, credible reasons behind wanting to push harder in workouts and creating heavier loads and more volume and all this stuff. So
I think CrossFit is just getting better too. I mean, when you look at the average level of the athlete now as like 6-7 years ago, it's not necessarily that we have more talent at our gym. They're just the training, what we're doing, our knowledge about how to make people better is just better.
It is. It's a good point. So if things are going to get better, so is the performance.
Yes.
And so I just think there's a right and wrong way to talk about this stuff. And if you ever feel like you're going down this path where you're a little bitter about it, or you're not really taking time and taking a step back from your perspective and trying to look at it from why someone else is doing it, I think you got to check yourself on that, because I've seen some stuff on this topic out there that just makes me shake my head. And it's always from the same kind of person. It's someone that was a really good crosser in 2012 because there weren't that many people doing it. And now you're not that good comparatively. And now it's like you're getting pissed that other people are good. That's the tone I get from other people. And that's just not what the CrossFit community is about. It's about lifting everyone up. One of the basic principles of Bison is that we will support anyone that wants to train for health and fitness. We will support anyone that wants to train for sport. It's all the same, but they need a couple of different approaches here and there. And you have to be able to support both sides, listen to both sides, and try to put yourselves in their minds as much as possible.
I may have to level 3 Joe's workout tomorrow. That's a tough one.
yeah. Tomorrow's workout. Yeah, I can't wait for that. And guys, make sure you come back next week. I think the interview with Joe is going to be awesome. Can't wait. All right, thanks, guys. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time out of your day to listen to the Herd Fit podcast. Be on the lookout for next week's episode.